Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by RJ Grimshaw, President and CEO of Unifi Equipment Finance. Thanks for joining me again, RJ.
Hey, Jesse, I'm glad to be back here, and these conversations are always fun between you and I.
No, absolutely. We're going to take a little different spin on it this time. I think last time we did this, I was actually sitting outside, but believe it or not, it might actually be warmer in Michigan than it is here now.
What's the temperature there today?
We have freeze warnings for the next 3 days.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So we're probably about the same. We're 32, 33. The fortunate thing, we haven't had any snow here in Ann Arbor yet. So far this winter has just been dark and gray, but that's what we expect. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of winter weather before Christmas, just to put everybody in the mood. But it's got to be extremely weird for you guys out there in Arizona.
Nah, it's like I haven't seen the sun in 2 days. I feel like I'm in Seattle or back in the Northeast. It's whatever. It'd be nice if we had a white Christmas. I don't know what we'd do with it. It'd probably stick around forever. But
well, you'd be stuck in the house, that's for sure. But when you're a world traveler, like you are, you climatize real easy.
You know what? That was the longest trip I've been on. It was about, I want to say 3 or 4 days. Could have, but the place is just phenomenal.
My family enjoyed just watching your photos, and their comment was, "Boy, Jesse never misses a good meal, does he?" And he loves. Yeah, that's how you built that wonderful physique. There's a lot of money invested in that bad boy. But it's fun. I mean, here's the thing too. At the end of the day, if you don't take advantage of things like that, when you're I don't want to say younger, but when you're healthy and you're vibrant and you can get out and do things. I just had my mom with me for the last 2 weeks, and she turns 80 in May. And I don't know about you, but to see her, she's still in good health and everything, but still at 80, that's a lot of years. And I remember my mom when she was younger, and I, Mom, let's go do this, Mom, let's go do that. And you forget, at 80, 85. So I'm glad to see you're doing what you do, and, get out there and travel and enjoy yourself, because I have to remind myself to do that more and more as I get older every year.
No, and who knows how much longer we have to travel and some other things. So, we'll just make sure Marianne's not going to watch this recording, okay? Because otherwise she's going to be like, well, when are we leaving?
Well, we go to Italy in August, so that's one trip already planned. So we're going over there to watch my son play hockey, which will be fun with his college team. So that's we pulled the bullet on the down payment, things of that nature. We're waiting to see what airfares do, but I'm probably just going to bite the bullet and get the airfares. But it's exciting to be able to go over there and at least experience Italy for a couple weeks in Switzerland.
Have you been there before?
This will be my first time over the pond. I've been just always so focused on, growing our business domestically. And I was fortunate enough growing up, I shouldn't say growing up, my 20s, to spend a lot of time in the Caribbean with my parents on vacations, Bahamas, Bermuda, not Bermuda, but Bahamas, all through Puerto Rico, Aruba, and things of that nature. So, it's a lot of memories back then. But then in the 30s and 40s, really focused on my career and haven't taken advantage of it like I should be.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about equipment finance is we're global. I had a meeting with Netsol last Friday.
See, that's what it's all about. Now, let's talk about what you're doing now with Consult Disrupt. I mean, is that a meeting based off of their needs of what you're doing with your own company?
Yeah, I mean, it was more, the gentleman, he used to be in the US, he's Farouk Ghouri. He now runs Australia, New Zealand, Japan. I mean, you talk about a fun market to run, right?
Right.
But, in general, one of the, I guess, business lines that Consult Disrupt's going to do is kind of act as that integrator for these different software conversions. I'm sure you've been through a few of them in your day. I know we were in the middle of one of them. I want to say you were probably the beta on a previous platform that I was on. And it was always, if you had that intermediary in between the software provider and the equipment finance organization, it's done several of these. They understand where those things are going to present them. Nothing's going to be perfect. They're always going to have challenges, but how do you apply common sense and best practices to alleviate, when these issues present themselves?
Well, the other thing too is you take the emotion out of the situation where you're a third party and you have a vested interest, but in the same respect, you're ensuring that both partners work together to achieve the goals that's required. And I don't think you can put a dollar amount on that. When we've gone through our conversions, they're difficult. Let's be, very straightforward with that. And if we did have one person that really helped us maneuver through that, but in the same respect, you have to have a special person to do that. And if you don't, a third party, and even if you have that special person, that third party that has the expertise like you have to identify the black spots, the black holes, where gaps are going to be, as well as maybe where efficiencies can be gained, it's well worth the investment.
No, and I agree 100%, and thank you for that, because it's one of those things where, some of the feedback that we've gotten is like, well, isn't that isn't that the software company's responsibility to make sure everything stays on track? And no, I mean, the software company's job is to create and enhance their software platform.
And sell more seats for their software. That's their plan. But they might say that they have a customer service of excellence and things of that nature, but in the same respect, they don't have a vested interest. Or if they do have a vested interest, they have a vested interest in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 companies. And you're one of many. And if you're smaller, it's even that much more difficult to get the attention of the software provider, as well as just evaluate it from a third party perspective. So I'm excited for you, for you to go out on your own and do this. You're well perceived in the marketplace and very knowledgeable. And it's just not the software aspect of it, but you bring a whole different dimension to it with your conversations relative to go to market and understanding, the different dynamics. So where if you're dealing just with a software company, they only know one thing, their software. They try and understand the marketplace and what our challenges are, and they do a pretty good job of it, but in the same respect, they're not in tune like you are, especially small ticket, large ticket, mid ticket, international, like you mentioned earlier. So, I think the market is, you're going to be well received in the market, and I'm sure that you'll be extremely busy and then trying to figure out how do you scale it, right? So that's all of our challenges, always our opportunities. As well as I want to expand on this too, where we as we talk about the concluding 2022, and as we go into 2023, and everybody's in the midst of budgeting and finalizing budgets for next year, and you layer on top of that the level of uncertainty and the amount of margin compression with rates increasing and what it's doing to our businesses that we serve. A lot of companies, if they want to do a new initiative around technology, would much rather use a third party and outsource those responsibilities. 2 reasons. One, it could be a lower cost for them to do that versus an employee. And then 2, they might not have the employee, and go out and identify the employee and bring them on slows down the process, and you're not sure if they're going to work out for you. So I think your timing is perfect. Where the market is today and the level of uncertainty, and we all know the future of banking, equipment leasing, equipment financing is driven by technology. And if CEOs and presidents and owners aren't looking at any technology that can make them become more efficient, specifically as banking as a service continues with open banking, you're going to be left behind, and which is exciting for guys like myself and guys like you, because we embrace it and engage it and want to learn.
Sure.
And then leverage that within our companies to provide a better customer journey for our customer base, but more importantly, drive efficiencies so our team members can do higher value activities and not just paper push.
No, and you just hit on so many different topics, but it makes complete sense. And like that, the whole fractional employee, I mean, banks used to be like, what are we doing? Outsourcing. Now, like a fractional employee, like that's who you have do those jobs where your team members that don't want to do data entry, they don't want to do certain things like that. Let them focus on what they want to do so they can be more efficient throughout their day and be happy and want to come to work and do better.
And that's where the advantages of being an independent, you're able to do things of that nature. You're able to really think like a business owner and a business person and figure out the best ways to run your business, where in the banking world, there's just so many regulations. And at the end of the day, the bank has to answer to the regulators. And, I'm not sure how this whole FTX thing is going to shake out. They're up on the Hill today. I've been watching some of it this morning. Typically these situations, they end up causing more regulation for the people that do business the right way, versus the scam and fraud that took place with FTX. So
it's all it takes is just one bad thing to cripple the system. So it's unfortunate.
No, I completely agree, and it's very interesting talking about 2023. Just like yourself, I talk to a lot of people in the industry and trying to figure out from a macro perspective what people are feeling for 2023 growth potentials. And I really feel for the small business owner. Last time we talked, it was back in August, I think. It was on a Sunday. You were outdoors. I just got back home from golfing, so I remember that day now. And we talked about just the tax implications on small businesses, gain on sale, and things of that nature. And the small business owner, which is my North Star of serving those type of customers, just continue to be squeezed with rising rates, with cost of goods, with insurance costs, with salaries and things of that nature. If you're not engaging with technology or embracing it, again, you're going to be left behind. And the future is always looking forward, and what the roadmap is to leverage, again, the different technology. And there's a lot of it. I mean, just look at the new Chat GPT that came out last week, the whole AI driven platform, which is unbelievable. So, which I'm excited about, because what it does, it helps guys like myself who aren't very technical be able to leverage that type of technology and then embrace it, and then it helps our business as well as myself professionally overall. So
well, that's good. I mean, as long as there's something where it's almost like in layman's terms, where it's like, can you help me out a little bit more and understand this?
Exactly. And then, if you're passionate, have the work ethic and the right attitude, those are just tools. And that's what I love about it, because it's really going to start differentiating the people who get it, and the entrepreneurs that I talk about all the time. Another tool for them to be able to leverage and utilize for the company, because if you're not looking for areas, again, for improvement, we call it constant, never-ending improvement within the business, and stay stagnant, you're going to be left behind. And I really think 2023 is going to be the year that really takes place. As well as, when we were in Asheville, we heard the CEO summit, and the same conference was, at the ELFA, in regards to the bigger institutions are going to, slow down asset growth if they think we're headed into a recession. And we've been living in fantasy land right now with our portfolio performance, and we're you over reserve for it and things of that nature for the rainy day. But guess what, when the rainy day comes, we forget about the reserves we built, and we just want to know why it's happening, and we slow things down. So it's going to be an interesting year. Personally, I think it's going to be some headwinds, but in the same respect, it's going to present a lot of opportunity to serve the partners and to serve the market that you're engaged with, that you really understand their needs and requirements, to be able to serve them and grow your balance sheet or maintain your balance sheet.
So do you think that, because I want to say traditionally over the last, 10 plus years, loans have been more common than leases, with a lot of, do you see it going back the other way?
A lot of discussion around that, especially with the whole disclosures in California and New York that are coming, where we have a mutual friend that all he wants to do is now sell FMV leases in the small ticket, which is a complete change of behavior for these unsophisticated business owners. They just know that they want to buy the piece of equipment and they want to have ownership at the end. It might work in some situations, but I think to change the market overall, it's going to be difficult. We're starting to see more and more, specifically over the last 10 years, more and more people asking for loans, more and more people asking for early payment discounts, more and more people looking for, the consumer, the business owners, granted, become more sophisticated and understand that. But all it takes is a half dozen finance companies in our industry to begin that practice of discounting payoffs. I saw a payoff last week from a competitor. We were actually paying it off, and they put right on their payoff the amount of premium or the amount of future interest that they're waiving to show the customer that. I've never seen that before. So it's just a dynamic marketplace. We're doing a lot of analytics right now around that, because we don't want to be at a disadvantage if the market does go towards more of a loan product, especially in title vehicles and things of that nature. But in the same respect, I would absolutely love if leasing truly did come back. But in our space, I think it's going to be very challenging. But that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. Just the dealers we work with to educate a Joe contractor that on his Bobcat bulldozer that he bought for $50,000, he's going to make 4 years of payments, and then at the end he has a 15% residual. I just don't know how that's going to work.
I have two questions for you. The first one is like from a residual perspective, dealing with title vehicles. Obviously, those residuals have been through the roof as of late. As things potentially open up in 2023, like, are you going to start seeing some people that have been sitting on this used equipment like start to unload it real fast to try to capitalize on that? Are they going to? You see them still sitting on it?
What we've seen people already doing that over the last year, probably over the last 2 years, because when we were in the midst of COVID, the values just skyrocketed. We saw the secondary market on any repossession. We were able to, again, that's where I talk about the portfolio performance, and we've lived in fantasy lands, because when we did have take it back an asset, we were selling it for more than what our outstandings were, which isn't normal, okay? And it didn't take a lot of work in order to be able to do that. But I really think a lot of the equipment has worked its way through the system on the used side. What I do see happening is that next year, most likely, companies will continue to right-size their equipment fleets and things of that nature. Not where the last 2 years, it was just a company taking advantage of the market where, hey, we bought this piece of equipment for $100,000. We used it for a year and a half. Today I could sell it for $150,000. I could take a $50,000 gain on sale. I'll wait for the market to right size, or we talked about outsourcing. Maybe we rent that piece just for jobs when we need it. So there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. I think that from a supply chain perspective, we're probably still 12 months out from it being back to where it needs to be. There's still pockets where there's challenges and long delay time, especially as the ticket size gets larger. If it's for a large CNC piece of a machine or something that's going into a factory, those are still 12 to 16 months out. And of course, the obligor wants to lock his rate in today for that.
Well, that was going to go into my next question there, where, if some of these machines take 18 to 24 months and they ordered them 12 months ago when the interest rate was basically nothing. Like, as a bank, like, how do you work with your partners, like, to manage the expectations where it's like, oh, by the way, your payment just tripled, but if they would have got the equipment when they ordered it?
Yeah, we try and stay away from the equipment piece. When I say that, is that they understand, or we try and do a good job of educating them that we have nothing to do with the equipment. We're just a third party to the event. And it's not so much in our dealer world, Jesse, where we see that. It's more in our bank customers or our end user customers that come directly to us, or they come back to us as a repeat customer, and then they go out and pick the manufacturer, the supplier. And it presents another whole piece of risk to that, because if the supplier says that they're out 12 to 16 months and we wanted to approve the lease or the loan, or the EFA, I should say, and maybe have it, interest payments be made over that time or floating, and you document the float. But there's a piece of the risk is if that supplier ultimately can't deliver, and you've maybe paid a 30% deposit for them to start the job. So You have to underwrite who the supplier is. A lot of these suppliers are in Italy or Germany. So we really try and stay diligent to understanding where the equipment's coming from. I'd actually rather do a piece of used equipment that's 2 or 3 years old, that's on site, that the end user actually went and saw, tested it, have a warranty with it, than waiting 16 months for a piece to come over from Italy. Because again, there's just so much risk associated with that. A lot of times what we're doing, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but it's just our philosophy, is we'll tell the customer, you write the check for the down payment. Okay, we'll let rates fall where they fall. You've locked in the equipment price. And then when you keep us up, or we'll stay in touch with you. And then when the equipment gets closer, and when we say closer, maybe 8 to 12 weeks out, then let's finalize everything and get the doc signed and things of that nature. It also protects us from the MAC clause with that customer too, if anything all of a sudden changed, with their credit profile. It provides us. So it's really just a lot of risk protection, and it's a fine line between risk protection, taking care of a good customer. It's the world we live in.
Yeah, I could just imagine what the what some of these mortgage brokers have been going through lately, where it's like, oh no, you got to lock in. It's like, what? And then boom.
I feel for these. I do feel for them, but I don't feel for them, because these guys lived high on the hog, just like they did in 07, 06, 05. And then the last 2 years, they took advantage of the situation again. And it's, I get cold calls just like you do, and I feel for these guys. I don't beat them up. I'm like, I appreciate the phone call, sir, but there's nothing you can offer me right now that is going to make me change off of my 2.87 interest rate. So
when I look at like the Zillow estimate or any of those estimates on what it would take to buy my house, like I wouldn't be able to afford, like I don't understand how people could buy a house right now, quite frankly, unless you just paid cash for it.
That's it. It's paying cash or something. That is a great advantage right now, for if you do have the liquidity to do that. I said the same thing to my wife. I said, we're probably in this house now for who knows how long, because we can't beat it for what we're paying. And if we decide to do something, I said, we'll just move and we'll rent it out. We'll do a long-term rental on it. And we'll still be a positive net cash flow situation, because again, the rate and the equity we have into it would be a good situation. But if you are a cash buyer right now, I think there's a lot of opportunities. But for the average family that's out looking for their first house, and then it's even challenging too, because the rent, the rents continue to increase so tremendously. It's just a very, very weird and different situation that's dynamic, because what I hear for what people pay for rents here in Ann Arbor, it's more than my mortgage. Now, granted, they don't have property tax and house insurance and maintenance and things of that nature, but in the same respect, probably, from an income perspective, it's, if you look at the percentages, it's probably a lot higher than mine or other people in that situation. So I have empathy, for a 30-something, early 30-something married, first child, maybe 2 kids, and they want their own house with a backyard. I don't know. It's difficult decision.
I mean, I don't know. I think my first condo that I got was 2006, and my interest rate was 5.5 back then. But I can't imagine where they're at today, and I don't see them going back down anytime soon. But
no,
hopefully I'm wrong.
My first house, my rate was 7.25, and that was in 1992 or 93. And so it's completely different. And I don't think low rates are the answer. It's a fine line between the two. And who's really getting squeezed right now, from what I've read in the journal and things of that nature, is the people with HELOCs. So they took out this money in their equity, because Zillow, like you said earlier, you look at the value of your house, they're able to give it, $100,000 interest only. It's a floating variable rate. They were probably their interest only payments before. Last year, middle last year, were a couple $100, maybe $300. Well, all of a sudden it's tripled, if not, quadrupled. And that's a direct cost to the consumer that they have to figure out. And that means they're going to take it from somewhere else.
Yeah, I
because
mean,
wages aren't increasing either. I mean, so
no.
it's
Yeah,
again,
I consider some of those. I consider some of those ARM programs. It's interesting with those some of the programs that they have, because when we built this from scratch, like the most like affordable program was like the 5-year ARM or 10-year ARM. But it's in the short term, that's fantastic because but long term, that would have been a really foolish. I couldn't imagine just your payment would almost double right now compared to what it was 12 months ago.
And now, so it doubles. Now you try and put your house on the market. You put the house on the market, you're still making that payment or that double payment, which you can't afford,
Yeah.
and there's no one coming to look at the house. So either you have to heavily discount it, or it's
or your fingers crossed if someone has cash, because I
well,
don't know.
that, or people are going to start depleting their 401ks, pulling money out of that to stay alive, and that's the vicious circle that people take. And the government loves talking about the consumer and the dollars that they have in their savings accounts that continues to shrink. You look at, they report on outstanding credit card balances that continues to increase. And think about a rate. I don't even know what a rate would be right now on your Amex if you didn't pay it off every month. It's got to be 26, 27%, which it's very challenging. But again, it goes back to discipline, as my parents always taught me, and I'm sure yours did too. It's about discipline of making sure you live within your means and have that rainy day fund, and don't overspend and enjoy life. But that's that balancing act. Do you take a 2-week vacation overseas?
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it.
Do you do a world tour and eat out every day, and crab and everything else, or do you do a staycation? Because you could do a staycation at your place because it's so beautiful and really have a great time. But that's and a lot of people, I always base the economy off of, and it's basically everybody else: restaurants, flights, bars, travel. And for the first time this month, I'm starting to see people say, I'm not going to make the trip. It's too expensive. I'll use myself as an example. I'm fortunate enough I could go out to if Michigan beats TCU, to the championship football game, for the national championship game. And I started looking at flights and flights and hotel. It'd be a $10,000 trip for two. And I said, no, that's okay. I'll sit on my couch and watch it, because we are going to Italy and we're doing other things. So, 2 years ago, that trip probably would have been $3,000, if that, for a great experience. But that's that tipping point that I'm starting to see. And people, Vegas numbers are down, starting to go down, and that's always a leading indicator when people aren't taking their disposable income and flying out to give it to the casino. So I think it's wise and prudent right now just to kind of, pull in the belt and just manage it and see where it goes. And think about all the people that made all the money off of Bitcoin and thought it was going to run forever. And now they're, either look at Tom Brady. I mean, that dude lost what, $550 million, $550 million. Okay. And I don't know if that was real cash or in kind for sponsorship and things of that nature, but dude, at the end of the day, he lost a lot of money. Okay. So
he lost more than that this year.
Well, yes, and he lost his wife over it. And I firmly believe that's the reason why he lost his wife, because, and it just shows you that's why you never get greedy in one certain situation. And I laugh when I see any of these jokesters now, pushing something. It's like, dude, I don't even watch the news anymore because it's all fake. No. It's all fabricated and fake and everything else. So I like talking to guys like you and other people in the industry and my buddies like mine did, and controlling those conversations. Then but the FTX thing is like a car accident. You can't take your eyes off it when you're driving by. So I have been watching that.
I think I've been following that whole thing through you. That's the only way I know about it, is just reading some of your posts and some of the stuff that you post on it, because I don't even turn on the news anymore whatsoever.
Well, think about it too, the Canadian teachers pension, they had hundreds of millions of dollars in that fund. And remember how when this happened in 2008 with Bernie Madoff, I mean, it was quick. They found out about him. Next day he was in jail. Okay. this guy hung out for what, 3 weeks, a month. And then if you really dive deep into it, which I don't want to, the corruption is just unbelievable. I mean, you look who his parents are, you look who they're associated with. It's corruption at the highest level.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, the stuff that I have heard from donations and everything else that this guy did, you would think, right?
Second
You would
largest
think.
contributor to Biden.
You would think.
Those are facts, guys. Those are facts.
You would think, yeah, but anyhow,
Those are facts.
like,
So
it's just
and
like, what?
it's absolutely insane. And again, I try not to focus on that. It's just more,
Yeah.
Being knowledgeable, at least understand what's taking place. But in the same respect, it's a system that's flawed and broke. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't have any answers. I think a lot of people go into Congress and Senate and the government, all good intentions, but when they get there, they quickly realize that the machine's so much larger than them that they can't influence change. And then they buy in, because if you don't buy in, it's a kiss of death for you anyways. So
Yep.
that's why there should be term limits.
The term limits and campaign finance reform, man.
So many different things. But back to our industry. Tell me let's talk about positive things. First, congratulations on a great year with the EFC and all the different charities and events that you held this year. I was able to join the one in Cincinnati, which was well attended and great. And at the conferences, you were recognized for everything you're doing. So thank you, first of all, for doing that. And it's not easy. I know the amount of time and hours and energy you put into that, but what do you see in 2023? What's your main initiatives and objectives?
No, and thank you for those kind words. And I appreciate your volunteerism, being the treasurer and being on the board of directors. So one of the things that I did on my 2+ week off vacation was summarize kind of all activity for the year that I need to shoot your way. But we donated close to $20,000 to the charities that we showcased at these events, which is fantastic. I mean, that's almost double what we did last year in 3 events. We were able to do that this year in 4 events. We hosted over 40, 80, 120. We had 180 different people from 100 different companies attend our 4 regional events we had this year. We have a good calendar for next year. We're throwing a golf tournament in there. We made sure we waited until you were in Italy before we did that, so you and I didn't have to argue over who was going to win on the golf course.
I already tore up Arnone on his golf course. I'd hate to. That's why he did it. He didn't want me to come back and beat him on his home course.
I don't blame him. But no, we have 5 events next year. April, Wind Trust is going to be hosting us down in Frisco. Then we're going to partner with Unifi in June for their crab feast. Will be the educational portion in front of it. That's in Maryland. So we're going to time that along with the Monitor's 50th anniversary. And most likely a lot of people flying in, we're going to go to that. So we're thinking about chartering a bus from Baltimore to, we'll have to figure out what the legality of, can you have alcohol cross borders? Maybe there may be a cooler on the bus. I don't know. That's not related to EFC. That's a Jesse sponsored thing. So We'll figure that out. But then in December, we're going to Chicago. Syndify is going to be hosting. And then in November, we'll have something here in Arizona, because at that point in time, I'm going to be ready to get off an airplane so I can selfishly do something in my backyard. And we have that golf tournament first Monday in August in New York.
That's exciting. I'm just so impressed on how our industry is just engaged, and it takes a village, as we all know, to do events like this and support the initiative and support what you're doing, and the whole industry has really stepped up. And if someone hasn't, that's okay as well. Everyone has their own position, but it's just from large to small. It's been very humbling to see all kinds of people step up and want success for EFC and what you're doing. And if you look at also the associations, ELFA, NIFA, they both have embraced you. The Monitor Equipment FA, they both embraced you. So it's just, it shows what an amazing industry we're both blessed to work in and be part of, because people care and they want to give back, and not necessarily always just give back to our industry per se, but outside of our industry. And we all have our own causes that are important to us. So it's great that you're allow people to do that in different geographies to, make a contribution to something that hits home and close to them.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's those words. It's a very humbling kind of experience for me, because I was always, I'm always on the business development side my entire career, and this is a different kind of it's a little uncomfortable, when you sit there and you talk to people about their passion projects and what they do and everything else. And we truly focus on that human side of equipment finance and our human capital, because we all have stuff going on, and it's providing that appropriate safe setting for people to speak freely. And then when you talk about what charities are associated with and what makes them who they are, I'm not comfortable sometimes getting up in front and sharing all that stuff, but there's people that inspire me to share what I want to, because they're doing it too. And it just goes to show that we're just not about making money in this industry. We truly want to make a difference. This just allows people to have a platform where they can feel comfortable to, to share. And you don't know what people do outside of work.
No,
So when you sit there and you hear about their stories and what they do on the weekends, it's like, wow, what can I do to make a difference?
I completely agree with that. And I always have to remind myself at times that it is, at the end of the day, people doing business with people, and everyone has their own challenges, and goes back to that empathy. You never know what someone's going through in their own life at that certain time. And it's not personal. It's never personal. And I love seeing people. When I was at the Cincinnati one, they just would resonate when they're talking about their passion project, and you'd see them glow and be able to talk about it. That's what was really cool. And it was a whole different demographic as well that attend these conferences. And I really feel that you have something special in regards to the emerging talent and the next level, because you provide a price point for people to be able to attend these that is extremely reasonable, and be able to network. And it's all about, again, back to people and networking. And a lot of people, I believe, at least again from the Cincinnati one, walked away with an understanding that they're not on an island, even if they're at a big bank or a small bank or a mid-sized bank. We all have the same problems. We all have the same challenges on a daily basis. It doesn't matter what logo's on your business card. So I think that, that's the giving piece is powerful, but the emerging talent, mentoring, leadership, the education piece is so important as well, because it's one thing to go raise money. It's another thing to raise money and plus educate and allow a forum for people to be able to be themselves and have those conversations and have fun. You never, and also Jesse, as we all know, never leaves the fun piece out of it. There's always going to be the fun piece.
There's some food, some drinks, I gotta, like you said before, this is 18 years worth of working on this physique, man. I got to make sure you keep it going.
Fine-tuned physique.
I may have ignored my health coach for 2.5 weeks while I was gone. I just basically sent him a message, I think a week ago, saying, I think it's time for me to hibernate for the rest of winter.
I think it's brilliant. We do need everything's chapters. I say that, you hear me say that, everything's chapters, right? You have chapters in every year you have chapters, in your life you have different chapters, and it's okay to take a break at times, as long as you know that you're going to get back on it. My wife and I are on a different chapter right now. We started working out last week because we want to be ahead of the curve when January gets here. We were talking about it, and I said, why are we waiting? Let's just go now before the gyms are packed. And we've been a week into it, and we feel great. The challenge is like tonight when I have to go to a dinner and 2 martinis and a steak, and but everything's in certain amounts, and you have to do that.
Yeah, I love it when people what is the word? Moderation. When people are like moderation, I'm like, yeah,
it's hard.
12 a.m. Jesse doesn't know moderation, so I just have to make sure I'm in bed before then I'm
That
good to
why in
go.
the road. We talk about that all the time. Why in the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
I get busted on a lot because as I get older, I take the why to bed all the time, and then I start getting the text messages, "Where are you?" But I feel good the next morning when I wake up, and those days. Believe me, I love to have a good time, as you know, and anyone else is watching this that knows me. But in the same respect, I rather day drink. I rather um, or have day fun. Whatever you're going to do at 1 a.m. in the morning, you could do at 1 p.m. in the afternoon and have just as much fun. So, but anyways, I'm looking forward to watching EFC next year and being part of it. And, this is just the foundation. I think that, you're going to have incredible things to do for the industry, giving back as well as the leadership component. And then you later on can consult disrupt it. It's been fun to watch you, Jesse, over the last couple of years when you first started this, and you said to me, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this." And quite honestly, I thought you were nuts. I said, "Man, I think you're biting off a lot to do. I'm not sure how it'll be received." But you just kept going and just kept, you saw your vision, and Laverne was a big piece of that as well. You can't
Sure.
take that away from her. And you just kept going and going and going, and you sit where you are. And I believe in my heart that's just the beginning of what you're going to be able to do with this foundation, and it's going to be fun to be part of and as well as watch.
No, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate your mentorship, RJ, because I'm sure every now and then when you see the text message, "Hey, you got a minute?" You're like, "What's this guy gonna run by me now?" Like, what is he coming up with now? And I love the fact that you're the voice of reason, because you're like, "Yeah, but," and I'm like, "I don't want to hear a but, man." I'm like, "It's a great idea, but."
Well, you have to have those folks, and I actually enjoy that. I probably have half dozen guys like you that I try and help, and I love that piece, because it gives me a different perspective, even for myself, because mentoring is a two-way street. Mentoring's up and mentoring's down, and it's learning from both parties. So I thoroughly enjoy those conversations. A lot of times I get off the phone with you or someone else, and I'm like, "Man, why didn't I think of that?" Or, "Boy, that's brilliant."
Well,
So
you can create your own brand new thing and just be generic and just copy off of other things and come up with EFC and fireside chats and other stuff.
oh, we've seen that. Yeah, that's amazing. And I typically call that
Oh.
R&D, rip off and duplicate, but you should change something. Maybe not fireside, call it, beachside, or call it golf course side, or come up with something a little bit more creative than just the same exact words. But again,
I found it amusing when I saw it. I was just like,
well, it's the greatest compliment in the world, right? If
yeah.
someone copies you and then doesn't change anything, it's like, okay, I must be doing okay, because we'll continue to evolve, and most likely they won't know how to evolve because all they do is rip off and duplicate, and that's it. So again, keep up the great work. It's been fun to watch.
Thank you.
And it's meaningful.
Thank you. Yeah, and from an EFC perspective, or Equipment Finance Cares, I guess I need to start saying it completely, out now. It wouldn't be where it's at today as a 501c3 organization as successful if it wasn't for volunteers and leadership like you. I'm pretty smart, where I surrounded myself with a bunch of people that were smarter than me, yourself included. So the advisory council that balances me when I come up with these crazy things. They're like, "Yeah, but," and that's an eclectic group of people and strong personalities. And what's amazing on those calls is you're like, "Yep, yep, nope, yep." So
well,
it's fun.
It shows you the attraction to you, your advisory council, which does a lot more for Equipment Finance Cares than I do. It just shows you their commitment and the level of talent that you're able to attract that want to help and support what you're trying to do. I mean, I'll just use Ricky as an example. Ricky's one of the smartest guys in the industry, and it has the biggest heart in the world of anyone I've ever met, and will do anything for anyone. And when you're able to have people like that step up and volunteer their own time, it speaks volumes about who you are, and again, the cause and what you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, RJ.
Yeah.
So I guess, in closing this today, what are your thoughts? And I guess, will Michigan win? Will Buffalo come to Phoenix in February?
That I tell you, that might be a good trip for me if they do that. Two things. One, TCU scares me because it's sort of like when Michigan played Iowa last year. And TCU is much better than Iowa in the championship game for the Big Ten. It's a game that you go in that you're expected to win, and I don't think Harbaugh will allow that confidence to get in there. But in the same respect, as the game progresses and TCU's hanging around, it's going to be, a tighter game. However, the one thing that Michigan's been able to do this year is just dominate second halves. They did it against Ohio State. They did it against everyone. And I don't know if that's conditioning, if it's mindset, but sooner or later that kind of catches up with you, right? You let somebody hang around with, and all of a sudden you don't get a bounce here or there, and now you're in a dogfight. I think they'll win. I'm not sure about winning it all.
Do I need to send you some Buckeye gear? Because I'm sure you're going to be the biggest Buckeye fan for a 3-hour span.
Of your
life.
I think for college football, it'll be absolutely amazing if Ohio State plays Michigan in the championship game. I think it would just be off the charts in such an environment. And then I'll be kicking myself in my butt that I didn't make the trip out there, because I'm sure one of our close friends for both of us will be there, and I'd like to just hang out with him and talk trash and drink beers with him. But I think the good news at the end of the day is that Harbaugh, this is the Harbaugh that we expected when he first arrived in 14 or 15 to build the foundation and start getting the recruits. And now he's doing that. And what it's a great learning lesson. He was complacent. And when he had the tough years during COVID, he renegotiated his contract to performance-based. He changed his diet. And again, because I live here, I get to see a lot of this. He made changes that he never did before. He went to younger coaches, which in our industry, any presidents or CEOs listening to this, you should be surrounding yourself not with people your age, but younger people, emerging talent. And that's what he did with his coaching staff. He brought in all new young coaches that could relate with the game, relate with the systems, and relate with recruiting, and he allowed them to do their job. And now you're seeing the results of that transition over the last 2 years. So it's exciting to be here.
No, that's good. And then, so if you come out to Phoenix in February, obviously I know where you'll be staying. So
I will be, but I'm telling you right now, you heard this first. Watch out for the Detroit Lions. Just watch out for them.
I told that to Jeremy the other day. I said Jeremy yesterday when I picked him up from school. I'm like, Lions, Super Bowl champions, let's go.
Watch out. And what they're building here is really, really special. And it all, I of course go to a couple games a year, things of that nature. But in the same respect, the coaching staff that they built there, and the excitement, and this past weekend's game was completely sold out. They had a worse record than Minnesota and went into the game as an underdog. So I think that everyone's starting to realize that they do have something special, and playing in that dome and the Ford Field helps them tremendously. And that's one of the knocks on Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo last weekend, their playing conditions were god awful. It's snowing and 20 degrees and wind, and the same thing next weekend, where when you got a high powered offense like they have, they're playing indoors. It's a completely different environment for them. And the Lions almost knocked off the Bills too, and that was a fun game to watch on Thanksgiving for anyone that did. It was a back and forth, and it's fun to see that. It really is, to see the smaller markets do well, and Buffalo needs it. To live in Buffalo, first of all, you have to have your head examined. Even if you're born and raised there, you don't break out just because of the amount of snow that they get, and let alone living in New York State, the taxes and the craziness there supporting New York City. So we've beaten that one to death. But Merry Christmas. Thanks
happy
for
holidays, sir.
Yeah, happy holidays. Thanks for having me on, and again, part of Equipment Finance Cares, and congratulations on Consult Disrupt, and I'm excited to see what you can do there. And maybe I'll be stealing some ideas from you for my Able Leadership operating system.
Hey, anything
that
you want, man. You know I'm an open book to you. Anything you want, you can take it whatever you want. Take whatever you
appreciate
want.
it. All right,
But
buddy.
I appreciate your friendship, RJ, and happy holidays, sir. Take care.
Guys, bye-bye.
Thank you.